15 miles per hour, and for today, on St. Patty's Day, mostly cloudy, windy and cooler, high in the upper 40s, and I've got calls here for you. This is Titus. Hello, Titus.
Hello, Ed.
I haven't seen that name since I saw the name Titus Moody from years ago.
That's what people tell me.
I bet. Where are you calling from?
Oh, I call from the north side.
Okay, how can we help you tonight?
Hello, Richard.
Yes, Titus.
Yeah, I'm interested in Bachelor's Grove.
Okay.
Never, ever do we ever do a show where somebody doesn't call up and want to know the legend of the haunted Bachelor's Grove Cemetery.
No, I know that about German settlers came here. They settled in Bachelor's Grove. They set for the sweethearts and everything. See, what I want to know about the area is, before I joined the service some 10 years ago, last I heard about the area was fenced off by, what was it, state police with some hurricane gating or something like that?
That was the Cook County Forest Reserves fenced it in.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I wonder what happened to the area since then, because I was in the service and I recently got out. What became of the area after that?
Bachelor's Grove precisely, or the area? Well, of course, there's a lot of condo development, a lot of stuff east of there, but basically you won't see any change in the Bachelor's Grove area itself for the most part because it's in the forest preserves. Mm-hmm. I'm afraid the hurricane fencing and the gate idea didn't work all that well. There are gaping holes there now that people can wander on in and prowl around the area. I've been out there every few months for years now. I guess within the last 10 years, there really hasn't been a lot of change. Maybe a few more stones have disappeared, been stolen or vandalized, but it's about the same as it was. The problem is that because it is now closed by the Forest Preserve, because there's not easy access for the location, I don't have much in the way of new material about it, but certainly the area is well worth a visit sometime during the day, but I would not recommend going out there at night.
So it was never settled who owned it or the heir or whatever?
Well, under Illinois state law, to my knowledge, a cemetery is a cemetery in perpetuity, and with the fact that these small cemeteries that you find around the state that were pretty much family communal type things, and when people die out, nobody seems to know, who the ownership transfers to. To my knowledge, it's just being maintained now by the Cook County Forest Preserve.
Okay.
Maintained, in whatever way they maintain it, which is
not great, probably.
I'm afraid it would be nice to see some money put into that place and it be spruced up.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, Titus.
Thank you.
As I understand it, as you are correct that once it's hallowed ground, it is that way forever, and it would take an act of the General Assembly.
Right, which is
to change the usage of that parcel of ground.
That's why, in trying to destroy a cemetery for putting in shopping malls or whatever, there's always a big deal where it has to be done through the state legislature.
Yeah.
Which is right, because I mean, we've become such cultural barbarians that I'll get on my soapbox for a moment.
Go ahead.
We've become such cultural barbarians that we fail to realize, I think, that for many of these people who've lived generations before us, the only record they're leaving behind for us, for the most part, is those few lines on a stone somewhere in a cemetery. And I think we should have more respect for those who've gone on before, our ancestors.
It might, there's a good time to bring this up too. It might seem a bit ghoulish to you if you're listening at home or wherever you happen to be right now, that Richard spends a good amount of his time in cemeteries. If you haven't been to a cemetery, other than perhaps for the purpose of burying a loved one or a friend, or making a call for a tombstone dedication or what have you, cemeteries are actually historical sites unto themselves. If you've ever bothered to look around and read the tombstones and the dates and so on, you've almost got a record of history there before you. There are some cemeteries that contain the final resting places of, some very interesting and in some cases famous people. For example, and you don't even have to get out of your car if you're lazy, Graceland Cemetery at the corner of Irving and Clark. I drive through there every once in a while, and it's a lesson in Chicago history to pass the tombs of the great and the near great and look at some of the intricacies that have gone into these things and some of the epitaphs. And what always amazes me is the dates. When you stop to look at a weathered tombstone, with a date on it from the 1800s, and you realize that was placed there, 100 and some years before you ever walked the face of the earth, and it has endured everything that could be thrown at it since then, and it's still there, and it'll be there long after you're gone.
Well, except for that air pollution that's destroying a lot of these too, Ed, but you're right. It's amazing to see these locations.
So don't be afraid to look at a cemetery for what it is, not only the final resting place of human beings, but a record of their presence on Earth. And that is one thing we all leave behind, I guess, is that kind of permanent record.
And in Europe and other parts of the United States, not so much here, picnicking in cemeteries is something that's quite popular. I'm really surprised. I should do a picnic in your local cemetery campaign or something here, because that's one way of going out and actually utilizing cemeteries for what they're there for, as memorials to those who've passed on, so you can see the names and see the people and reflect on what's happened.
Although one should make...
We'll do some public service announcements on that. Yeah, picnic in your local cemetery.
I'm sure that some of your friends at some of these cemeteries you visit will be thrilled, particularly at a certain Catholic cemetery on the southwest side. Let's talk about them for a moment. They were the victims out there at your favorite cemetery last year of an invasion by a couple of punks who got into a mausoleum, if I remember, and actually opened a casket. Do you remember that last year?
In fact, one of the Cook County officers involved in the case called me for advice on that and my expertise on that case. Yeah, there was a number of situations like that in recent years, and that was one of them where it was breaking into a crypt and damage to the coffins and bones taken.
For what purpose now? I remember reading in the paper that a couple of these young punks said, we were just drunk and having a good time. Is there any indication that any of this kind of stuff is for ritualistic purposes and not done by teenagers or vandals and done by some unholy kind of organization?
We have a situation, Ed, where we've got it's on different levels, and Jerry Samandel, of course, who does programs on this, would be a better person to talk to regarding this. And you do have the hardcore person who's into ritual, who would be looking for objects like that for a power trip. But then you've also got what are called the dabblers, people who are just, they have not a very in-depth knowledge of it, but they're trying to mimic or copy what they think they should do via the movies or via books or via their reading to imitate people who they feel have the knowledge. And it's for the most part, when situations like this occur, that you've got a little bit of knowledge. Unfortunately, doesn't go very far when you've got people who are a bit inebriated or whatever, and they're going out there to try to imitate others. So that's for the most part what happens.
Cemetery vandalism is not uncommon here and elsewhere. You hear about it every once in a while, that when the light of day occurs, somebody going to a cemetery will notice that tombstones have been turned over, and graves have been disturbed, mausoleums have been broken into. It's a very serious crime, for one thing, and it's certainly a horrible thing to do to a family, for example, or hallowed ground. The Bachelor's Grove case, unfortunately, here you have what is, I guess, kind of an untraditional cemetery in a way, because it's kind of all stuck in the forest preserves. It was there first.
Right, that area was a farming area. That was there well before the forest preserves came in. In fact, it's pretty obvious when you look around the area. Unfortunately, when the Forest Preserve District took over the area and they reforested it, they planted the trees in straight lines. I mean, you don't see straight lines in nature, and it's like, my gosh, what's wrong with these people? Why did they create such an artificial looking patch of nature? But yeah, that was there first, because we're talking about a cemetery that dated back to the 1840s, well before there was a need to preserve land and the Burnham's plan for the Cook County Forest Preserves and such.
Now, Bachelor's Grove is located at approximately...
Yeah, that's near Midlothian, 143rd Street, just east of Ridgeland. And it's a nice little stretch of forest preserves out that way. And the location so often sought by visitors, the cemetery area itself is a gravel road, overgrown asphalt gravel road that is to be found just on the eastern edge of the forest preserve belt there, at a road that's now barricaded. But you can just see the signs and...
Yeah.
It's the bend in the road there.
The cemetery has been the site of abuse by vandals for a number of years. It has been a site where young people go to play games and to park and what have you, and if they'd only gone and looked and done no damage, it probably would still be open 24 hours a day for public access, but that is no longer the case. The people that are buried there, I mean, nobody's been buried there in how long? I mean, no new person's been buried there in how long, would you say?
About 65 or so, I believe. Yeah.
The last time. Is it actually, it is and always will be a cemetery, but is there like a governing body over this cemetery, or is the county ultimately responsible for it?
At this point, it's probably the county, although I was in touch with the one of the local historical societies a few years back who was trying to gather information on the site.
Now, most of the people that are buried there are immigrants, right? And
the original founders of the families, right. Heavy preponderance of German names. Yes.
And, I mean, Midlothian, at that time, when that cemetery was opened, was quite a distance from then the very beginnings of development here in the Chicago area. I mean, that cemetery dates back to about the time that Chicago was developing.
Right.
And, that's a hell of a distance from down, from the Chicago River and, the area we're in today, where Fort Dearborn was located. What was out there? What was going on out there?
That began as a truck farm area, and produce would be brought into Chicago then eventually. But as you're right, it would be quite a haul. And then, of course, you had the Mount Greenwood area on the south side was Dutch farms originally. You've got the last working farm in Chicago out there. Still out there, a Wengus farm. So you had a Dutch farming community. This would be a German farming community. You had, the Irish were out there around St. James Sag, Route 83, 107th Street out that way. So what you had was very interesting to me is you had like little microcosms of Europe setting up here and different patches and a little bit of Europe here, a little bit of Europe there, different parts of various cultures that would be forming their own little communities around Chicagoland.
And as a function of their community, they also had to have their own cemetery, right?
Right, and of course they had to be self-sufficient, so they had the church, the cemetery, the general store, everything else would be necessary for survival, for continuation of their culture.
But Bachelor's Grove is what is it, accessible by foot during the day?
Yeah, right. You can park on the road and walk back there, or park in Rubio Woods across the way and hike through the area. It's a very interesting area for wildlife, too, Ed. You can find a lot of interesting bird sight. In fact, I saw a wild turkey out there one time when I was out there.
Yeah, Louis Rich was chasing it down the road. We're going to take a break for a minute.
Okay.
And we'll be back. Richard Crowe is here. The number is 591-7200. We'll give you Richard's address again if you'd like to drop him a note and get the brochures on the Chicago Supernatural Tour or his Leprechaun Lecture or the tours he's conducting to New Orleans and to Salem, Massachusetts. So pop in here if you want to play a part.
Hi, I'm Ron Santo, broadcaster of the Chicago Cubs. I've hit a lot of home runs in my time, and now you can hit a home run by completing the 1990 census in April. When you get your census form, fill it out, mail it back. It's quick, it's easy, and it's confidential. The accurate count of every individual can mean the difference in service and representation in your area. Do your part for Chicago and join the winning team. We're counting on you.
Does your florist have a 100-year tradition of excellence to uphold when he designs and delivers your flower arrangement? Amling's Flowerland does. Dial 312-AM-LINGS.
And this is the St. Patrick's Day from 1990, and we've got a big deal in Chicago today. It all starts at 12 noon. On Dearborn Street, 45,000 people are expected to march during that parade, which will last several hours. And it will be televised. Watch it on Channel 9 with Tom Skilling and the very talented Butch McGuire, famous saloon keeper, will be Tom's partner on the broadcast. Our number rings. We'll answer in a moment, 591-7200. The St. Patrick's Day weather should be very nice. Right now we have a west wind at 16. Humidity is 73%, 44. Downtown, 44 Midway, 42 at O'Hare. Today a high in the upper 40s, windy, and hopefully we'll see some sun, but there'll also be a few clouds. I'm Ed Schwartz, visiting with Richard Crowe, the ghost hunter, local folklore expert, and raconteur gourmet and tour guide of the unknown. So, Richard, we've got some calls coming in here at 591-7200. Evan.
Yeah, how you doing, Ed?
Well, good. Where are you calling from?
Bradley, Illinois.
Bradley, home of the Bradley Braves.
You better believe it.
All right. Go ahead.
I was wanting to ask, Richard had said he had been to every county in Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
On my great-grandmother's side, they're from Waterford County. Is that north or south in Ireland?
Southeast.
South? It would be in the southern part, though.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it's in the Republic.
Right.
All right. My grandmother used to tell me that my great-grandmother was they call him a tinker.
Uh-oh.
Have you ever heard the word? It was like
the Irish gypsies.
Gypsy, yeah.
Right.
And she read tea leaves and things like that. And you have heard of the term, no?
Oh, yes. In fact, there was a very famous tinker was just in town here in November, Doc Shields. He was the guest of honor, the big man at the Magic conventions down at the Blackstone Hotel. And I was invited down there. I was a speaker, too. I was a participant at that show. And the tinkers, they're not Romany gypsies. They're not dark. But for the most part, they have redder hair than anybody else over in Ireland. And the tradition is that they were people who were set on the road, made homeless during the 17th century, during the days of Cromwell. And they were dispossessed of their land.
Oh, Lord.
And they just picked up things and been moving ever since. And there are tinkers in this country, too, Ed.
Yeah.
There actually are wandering groups of Irish gypsies, or tinkers, if you will, that move around the United States now.
Oh, Richard, can I ask you, have
Sure.
you... her last name was Hart.
Mm-hmm.
And in Waterford County, there is a famous tavern called Hart's Tavern. Have you ever been in there?
No, I haven't been there.
I've been sent literature there talking about their famous soccer teams and all that, and that I possibly could be a relative, and wanting me to buy sweatshirts and stuff with Hart's Tavern, things like that,
Uh-huh.
And I thought it was interesting about my great-grandmother, and it's kind of depressing what you're telling me, but thought maybe she was related to the Hart's Tavern.
Could well be, but I mean, that's... history's quite interesting when you look into it, and there's not a lot of evidence for sure how the tinkers got going. As I say, that was a traditional explanation, was that they were set on the road during the days of Cromwell.
Well,
And I was just down at Croc's a couple of months back, and there's a book on gypsies, pretty much on Romany gypsies, but they do have a little bit on the tinkers of Ireland. And of course there are but there are also these tinker-type bands in Scotland and in Britain proper. And whether or not they came over from Ireland, or it's a pretty hard thing to sort out. Which makes it very interesting, because you're dealing with a lot of legends and folklore here as to the origins of certain activity here on the parts of these people. But there definitely are distinct groups that are wandering around like that.
Well, if I can bear with you one more, Ed, can I ask him a question? Because I had an experience. I went to Andersonville in Georgia.
Uh-huh.
That's where most of the northern soldiers were starved to death, or they had the mass graves and that there.
Right, the famous prison camp there.
Yeah, and they have, in the town, they have that big statue to the Mr. Schwartz, the guy, the commander of the thing, the Swiss man.
Swiss mercenary who was hung after the war for war crimes, right?
Well, I went there, and I'm not a person that is, I'm emotional, but I'm not the kind of person that really believes too much in the supernatural or anything. I'm a cemetery freak, and I'm a Civil War buff. But I went there, and they have a tape that they play, and they played, and I walked around, and I was standing at the one of the mass graves, and all of a sudden just a chill came over me, and an overwhelming sense of a smell of like rotting flesh or illness. And I started uncontrollably crying. Just
shaking all over and just crying. And my wife was standing there, and she said, "What is the matter with you?" And I said, "I don't know." I said, "I don't know. I've just got this feeling." And I couldn't stop crying.
What do you make of that?
Maybe you found your previous life person's grave, like we were talking earlier with Cliff Arquette. I had never heard that Cliff Arquette story before, but it's pretty interesting. And you were always into the Civil War before that time?
I've always been a Civil War buff, and I visited...
Were you drawn to Andersonville, do you think, or you just...
Well, no, see, I'd been to Gettysburg, I'd been to Vicksburg, I'd been to Corinth, Mississippi, what is that, Bloody Pond. I'd been to several of the battlefields. I'd been to Gettysburg. But I happened to be in Georgia and wanted to go to Andersonville because I'd heard so much about the mistreatment of the Northern soldiers, and I wanted to see it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one of the last places I hadn't seen. So I went there, and I had never had these experiences any place but at that mass grave. And like I said, I'm not the kind of man that cries easily. I mean, my wife she just couldn't get over it. I mean, it was just uncontrollable sobbing, like a real deep mourning, you know. And I told her later, when I could control myself, the smell I smelled before the tears came, and you know, she just looked at me like, you know. But she knew something had happened because she knew that was not my nature to cry like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. I guess we'll not come up with an answer for it.
Of course, there wouldn't be any rotting flesh after all those years.
Mm.
No, it was just a smell of like rotting, you know, like
Right.
if you ever been on a farm where there's a dead animal or something. It was just all of a sudden a different. My wife didn't smell it, just me.
Right. Well, it certainly has all the hallmarks of a psychic experience. The question is what to make of it and how to sort it out. You should go back there again.
Yeah.
I'm kind of afraid to.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
All right, my friend. It's good to hear from you.
Okay, Ed.
Thanks for the call. Getting some good Civil War calls today.
Yeah. 591-7200. We'll return to Richard Crowe. If you'd like to say hello, please do.
Whatever your next reason is for being downtown, Miller's Pub wants you to join them for your next breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Miller's Pub is walking distance from the Palmer House Art Institute, DePaul and Roosevelt University's Orchestra Hall, and the Auditorium Theater. Miller's Pub will provide you with the outstanding taste of Canadian baby back ribs, steaks, pork chops, lobster tails, and more, including charbroiled steak burgers, or try one of the chef's daily specials. At 134 South Wabash in downtown Chicago, Miller's is open 7 days a week from 6:30 a.m. until 4 a.m. Stop in for the taste of Miller's fine food, served in an old Chicago atmosphere that's sure to stir up memories from the past. Call for reservations today. Dial 312-MILLERS. That's Miller's, offering their dinner guests discount parking. Come in today and let one of the Gallios family greet you at the door. Miller's at 134 South Wabash in downtown Chicago. Stop in before or after a Bulls or Blackhawks game. Dial 312-MILLERS. That's 312-645-5377.
If you would like to read up on some of Richard's activities, he's got all kinds of tours you can go on. There's the Chicago Supernatural Tour, which is, a 5-hour bus tour around the Chicago area. He's got a haunted boat tour that looks at the sights by water. And trips coming up to New Orleans and also Salem, Massachusetts. So you give him either a call or drop him a note. We'll give you the address if you'd like to get these brochures. Write to Richard Crowe, CROWE, P.O. Box 29054, Chicago 60629. How long will it take before you'll respond when something comes in?
As soon as possible, Ed. I try to keep the mail moving quite quickly.
All right. We'll keep the program moving. Let me announce our phone number in Chicago, 591-7200. Give us a call if you'd like. We're going to break for news, and we'll come right back with my special guest on this St. Patrick's Day morning, coming to you from WGN Chicago, where we'll all be wearing green today. And here he is wearing, yellow. Oh, great. Gene Deretti, you are out of uniform. At midnight, we all should have changed the green. I'll tell you what, I'll get a green magic marker and I'll pink you. What's going on?
Windy and colder overnight, becoming cloudy. A few showers or flurries. Low in the mid-30s. Mostly cloudy on Saturday, windy and cooler, and a high in the upper 40s. Fair and colder on Saturday night, the low in the upper 20s to the lower 30s. Sunday's outlook, partly sunny and cooler, a high in the mid-40s. Right now it's 40 degrees at O'Hare, 44 at Midway, also 44 at the lakefront. Humidity 79%. The wind is from the southwest at 17. Barometer 29.66 and flowing. That's WGN News and Weather. Gene Deretti reporting, and here's Eddie.
That's me, and we'll return to our program in a couple. We've got Paul Harvey standing by. And Richard Crowe is here. The phone number is 591-7200. Here's a guy you'll never lose sight of. Mr. Paul Harvey appears exclusively on WGN 4 times every day.
Hello, Americans. I'm Paul Harvey. Now, you know what the news is. In a minute, you're going to hear the rest of the story.
This is Hugh Downs for the U.S. Space Foundation, presenting Carol Burnett and Tom Selleck.
Carol.
Tom.
Some people still don't realize how space technology benefits everyone.
Well, you've played a detective. Why don't you give them a clue, and I'll be your helper.
Okay, partner. Look at this.
Without warning, hurricanes can take a huge toll in lives and property.
But with space satellites, we now have ample warnings.
And thousands of lives have been saved.
Hey, Carol, we're a great team.
We're a great item.
Space technology.
This is what's in it for you.
When you have something tall to fill at the sink, there is now a faucet that rises to the occasion. The remarkable riser by Moen, and True Value has it. The first adjustable height kitchen faucet with a spout that rises up to 9 inches to fill the tall pitchers and the coffee urns and the big flower vases. And this riser faucet is washerless, too, backed by a 10-year warranty from Moen. The riser is True Value. These rest of the stories are now available in a video cassette so that you can watch the storyteller on your home television set if you want to, and your True Value dealer has a supply of those also. Now the rest of the story. Once upon a time, on the deadly borderline where Hell's Kitchen butts Harlem, there was a New York street punk named Jack. He ran with a gang. He rumbled with fists and rocks and knives and zip guns. He aimed to own the pavement. He was 8 years young. But Hell's Kitchen grows a boy into something more before your eyes, and Jack grew quickly. He learned the ins and the outs and the ups and downs of guarding the turf and watching the cops and knowing the score and staying alive. One day while playing hooky from this prep school for hoods and cons, Jack encountered something unexpected in himself. His older sister wanted more out of life than the prison of Hell's Kitchen, so she had enrolled in a dancing class. And the little tough guy made fun of her for doing it, until one day when she made him come with her. Somebody's got to keep an eye on you, she told him, and at least I'll know you're not in trouble. And so here we have Jack sitting in a chair, surrounded by girls his sister's age, and he's watching something that made no sense to him at all. And what he did next was entirely predictable. He tried to disrupt the class. First, he made faces at the girls when the instructor was not looking. Then, growing bolder, he began making irritating noises. What surprised Jack was that even though the dance teacher surely knew what he was trying to do, she ignored him. So he made the noises louder, and still she ignored him. Until the class was almost over. The last item on the agenda was a jumping exercise. Suddenly, the instructor spun round, stabbed a finger at Jack, and she said, "All right, little brother, if you've so much energy, get up out of that chair and do these jumps." And she added, "Let's see if you can jump as high as the girls." Well, the dare was irresistible. Jack sprang to his feet, determined to prove himself superior. And with all of his might, he leaped into the air, and then again. And on the third jump, something happened deep inside him. It was a feeling of inexplicable exhilaration, a feeling of freedom that he had never known before. And all Jack knew for certain was that he wanted that feeling again, and again, and again. Next time his sister's dancing class convened, Jack did not have to be persuaded to tag along. This time he wanted to learn with the rest of the students. His buddies in the gang, most of whom were much older, would not have understood, would have called Jack a sissy, and might have said or done worse. So the little tough guy would do what he could to avoid exposure. By no way would he abandon that incredible gravity-defying sensation, not then and not ever. Well, since the story that I've just related, 5 decades have come and gone, during which in the world of international ballet there emerged a titanic talent called Jacques d'Amboise, protege of the immortal Balanchine, member of New York City's City Ballet at 15, founder of the National Dance Institute, and one of the finest classical dancers of modern times. It is said that d'Amboise in his prime was best known for his amazing leaps. Well, that's not all that amazing, is it? Once you've learned the rest of the story.
Windy City, Irish, where the crack is always best, where every day is Paddy's Day and everyone's a guest. If you're Irish on the north side or Irish on the west, welcome to the south side. Come join me, Irish best. We're the south side Irish as our fathers were before. We come from the Windy City and we're Irish to the core. From Bridgeport to Beverly, from Midway to South Shore, we're the South Side Irish. Let's sing it out once more. Our parents came from Mayo, from Cork and Donegal. We come from Sabina, St. Killian's and St. Gall, St. Leo Visitation, Little Flower and the rest. The South Side parishes are mighty, they're the best. We're the South Side Irish as our fathers were before. We come from the Windy City and we're Irish to the core. From Bridgeport to Beverly, from Midway to South Shore, we're the South Side Irish. Let's sing it out once more. We live on the South Side, Mayor Daley lives here too. The greatest Irish leader that Chicago ever knew. And he was always proud of his Southside Irish roots. So here's to his honor, to his memory we'll be true. We're the Southside Irish as our fathers were before. We come from the Windy City and we're Irish to the core. From Bridgeport to Beverly, from Midway to South Shore, we're the South Side Irish. Let's sing it out once more. Sing the songs our fathers sang when they were growing up. Rebel songs of Erin's Isle in a South Side Irish pub. And when it comes to baseball, we have 2 favorite clubs. The Go-Go White Sox and whoever plays the Cubs. We're the South Side Irish as our fathers were before. We come from the Windy City and we're Irish to the core. From Bridgeport to Beverly, from Midway to South Shore, we're the South Side Irish. Let's sing it out once more. We're the South Side Irish as our fathers were before. We come from the Windy City and we're Irish to the core. From Bridgeport to Beverly, from Midway to South Shore, we're the South Side Irish. Let's sing it out once more. We're the South Side Irish as our fathers were before. We come from the Windy City and we're Irish to...
Oh, yes, that is a very, very fitting song for St. Patrick's Day morning, and Richard Crowe, being a South Side Irishman, said, you've got to play
it for my friend Terry McEldowney out there in the South Side.
Yes, and that'll be played a few dozen times today, no doubt, I would imagine. You know, the line in there about...
Simulcast in every bar on Western Avenue.
Yeah, absolutely. The line in there about the Cubs and the Sox and so on. We got a lot of calls for you, Rich. I guess we ought to get to them. 591-7200 is our WGN neighbor number. Let me hit the phone here. Eric, are you there?
Hi.
Hi, good morning. Where are you, Eric?
I'm in Warrenville.
Warrenville. All right.
Yeah.
The Doo-Wah Demon country out there.
What's that?
Time out.
The Doo-Wah Demon.
What the hell is a Doo-Wah Demon?
From the gravel pit out there? The quarry?
No, there's no gravel pit out here.
Well, there used to be.
Okay, I just had one question.
Okay.
Eric sounds a little bit like he's calling from another world. Are you,
No, I'm on a cordless phone.
Got a cordless phone, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Yes.
what do you think about the book Communion?
Mm-hmm.
I just want your opinion.
Well...
Is it readable or no?
Believable or readable?
Readable.
Well, it's a question of personal
actually,
taste.
Readable or believable.
Yeah, it's a question of personal taste. Stryber's material is certainly quite popular now.
Uh-huh.
And, UFO stuff is hot right now. And, I don't know, it's interesting, but I find it a little bit hard to believe that there are so many people who claim that they were abducted by space aliens. Because it seems to be a growth industry. All these people who have these memories now under hypnosis or whatever and have this, not to say that it can't happen, I just wonder if it's happened to the extent that some people would have you believe.
But,
do you have a personal
No, I was going to
that?
ask you one other thing.
Sure.
Do you think somebody should make so much money off of a book like that?
Well, this is America. It's called free enterprise.
Stryber was making a lot of money
I know,
with...
Ed. I know,
Well, Stryber was making a lot of money with his novels, so I don't think that he necessarily had to do this. If anything, he took a chance, I think, by going into something like this and claiming personal involvement.
Would you find it fiction or nonfiction?
Well, he believes it. Well, at least he's marketing this as nonfiction.
Of course, he believes it's nonfiction.
Well, I mean, he's marketing it as nonfiction. I would hope that he's...
Of course it is.
What did this guy write about? What was it?
Stryber he wrote The Wolfen and other famous...
I'm talking about Communion.
I understand, but I just wanted to give the background for Ed.
Okay.
That he was a very popular, very successful novel fiction writer, and then he comes up with this concept that he was
abducted.
That he was abducted by space aliens, and it's sort of a newer twist on some of the older stuff that's been around for some time.
So,
Barney and Betty Hill and other cases in the past.
What do you think his motive was for this?
I would hope and think that he's doing this because he believes it personally. Because I wouldn't think that he would go off on this tack thinking that he's going to necessarily be successful at it, because he certainly had the success of the novels.
All right, my friend, appreciate the call. Let's try another. WGN Radio, this is Bob?
Yes, it is.
Hi, Bob.
Okay, Ed, I have a couple questions.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, I'd like to know if anything supernatural goes on in Graceland Cemetery, Rose Hill, and I'd like to know about Peabody's tomb, what it is.
Okay. Boy, three big questions, yeah. As for Graceland, first of all, Graceland is a very exclusive cemetery, as is Rose Hill. And you've got a bit of a problem where you have exclusive cemeteries versus working-class, blue-collar type cemeteries, and that accessibility is often limited because of the fact that wealthier people, dog patrol in Graceland at least, so you don't have a lot of potential feedback. But yeah, there are a number of stories about Graceland Cemetery, including footsteps and things heard in the chapel when there's nobody around, when there's nobody there to make them, and so on. And Rose Hill, my favorite story, which we mentioned earlier, Eddie, off the air, about Rose Hill Cemetery, was the story about Bobby Frank, victim of Leopold and Loeb, the very famous 1920s era murder here in Chicago. And it was Clarence Darrow, and we just celebrated the anniversary of his death this week, by the way. Clarence Darrow, who saved Leopold and Loeb from almost certain electric chair death after their conviction of the murder. And Bobby Frank is buried in a crypt at Rose Hill, which is really something to see. I visited that a while back. And according to a former employee of Rose Hill, Bobby Frank's ghost was seen often around the crypt and only found peace, only could find rest after his two killers had passed on. And a very interesting story regarding Bobby Frank and his resting place out there at Rose Hill. And the other question about Peabody's tomb. Peabody's tomb is a location on my daytime bus trip, 31st Street and Route 83. And, of course, as soon as we mention this, Ed, I think the antenna go up out there to make sure we get the story straight.
Yeah,
so, we can talk about the story of Peabody's tomb, but please listen carefully and understand that we're giving you the straight dope on this.
And don't go out poking around.
Don't go trespassing where you don't belong, and respect property rights of individuals. Francis Peabody, who the area of Peabody's tomb takes its name from, was the founder of the Peabody Coal Company, a very well-known company, still in existence today. And Peabody, with his great wealth, lived an almost Howard Hughes-type existence out in the west suburb of Oakbrook, and was quite eccentric, and was the kind of a paranoid individual who felt that one day there would be workers' revolt as coal miners would come up looking for him. So when he built this mansion, which for all the world looks like something out of southwest England, slate roof, red brick, timber and plaster construction, he also built secret tunnels on the property. He had secret passageways in the home and so on. Eventually, Peabody died after being thrown from a horse. He died on the property and was buried there on the land. And to this day, it's still talked about as Peabody's tomb, even though the property is now owned by the Franciscan Fathers. And they now have a retreat house there, Mays Lake, which incorporates the former mansion owned by Francis Peabody. And generations now of teenagers have tried to sneak on the property from the 1920s, thinking that Peabody is in a glass tank of formaldehyde in the chapel on the premises, on the property.
They think he's floating in there, and
he's floating in there,
and visible for display purposes.
Visible if you come and sneak into the property, and of course it's become almost a rite of manhood or womanhood, a teenage prank thing to go out there trespassing looking for Peabody. But of course, Peabody is not there on the property. Peabody is no longer buried there. He's not in a glass case.
Never was.
Never was in a glass case. What you had, old folk tradition here, because the Franciscan Fathers do have the wax-encased bones, the relics of Saint Innocent, a boy saint from the Roman persecutions. This particular reliquary is owned by the Franciscans, and eventually, over the years, as the stories became intertwined, Francis Peabody, an eccentric, reclusive individual, such a name so well known in the area that eventually, after the Franciscans would acquire the Peabody property, after the Peabody line had died out, that the name Peabody was transferred, of course, to this reliquary, and total mix-up, total confusion. So there's nothing supernatural, and there's nothing Peabody-ish about what happens out there, and yet, I'd say once or twice a year during these programs, we get somebody calling wanting to know about Peabody's tomb. Just a very interesting case of twisted and somewhat skewed folk tradition, but Peabody is no longer out there on the land he once owned, and the glass-encased relic is a strictly religious thing, and no connection at all with Peabody.
Is the glass-enclosed relic on display? Is that the...
I've not been out there in recent years, Ed, but it formerly was at the Franciscan Seminary, St. Joseph Seminary, and now I understand it's kept at the retreat house. And at one time, I was out there for a Sunday Mass some years back. You could actually buy picture postcards of St. Innocent in the glass case. Now, maybe selling picture postcards of this body in a glass case had a lot to do with perpetuating the story.
Yeah,
but I have a collection of odd and unusual picture postcards around the world, and that's one of my favorites.
All right, does that help you out now?
Okay, is that the St. James Cemetery?
No. Now we're talking about the famous Monk's Castle. You're getting your stories a little bit overlapping. Yeah. I'm sorry?
I must have the whole thing mixed up then, because I heard it was always in that St. James Cemetery. That's on Cass Avenue, I think.
St. James is at 107th Street in Archer.
That's it.
Near Route 83, which is on the outskirts of Lamont.
Yeah.
And just past Willow Springs, further down Archer, past Willow Springs. And no, there's never been a Peabody connection with that location, but there is a monk connection, if you will, reports of ghostly monks or phantom monks out there. And because the Franciscans, of course, wear the brown garb, the monk outfits, maybe that's where the confusion comes in.
Yeah. Because, see, I heard a story once about Rose Hill, where the mausoleum is, where I guess it was once a caretaker that took care of it, or still does, that the alarms would go off in the middle of the night in the mausoleum, because I guess because all the Tiffany windows and that are in there, they have alarms. And that when they would go through there, they could never find out what happened or how they went off or anything.
there is a lot of problems like that with the alarms going off. That's not the only location like that. And you wonder whether or not it's faulty wiring or just what, but certainly the persistence of electrical disturbances at some of these sites would perhaps lead some credence to the fact that there's something funny taking place.
Yeah. Okay, there's one more cemetery yet. It's at Clark and Irving. It's an old Jewish cemetery that was it's first now being brought back. I mean, it was always all overgrown in that.
Uh-huh.
That's called Wonders, I believe.
Yeah. Was there any type of sightings? Because it seems so eerie, but it used to be before.
There was a great photograph that was taken by a retired Chicago cop named Jim Henderson with a model, Ladine, who was out there posing. And when the photograph was taken, later developed, pouring out, I suppose you could say, from Ladine's neck and head is another head, and it's a great photograph. I do use this in my slide lecture, by the way, and do have copies of these photographs, and interviewed Jim Henderson and the model extensively. What's interesting about that is that this was a professional film shoot with a professional photographer and a semi-pro model, and ghosts were not what they were looking for. They were looking for a fashion location.
And they picked a cemetery?
Well, but you see, it was almost like an Elvira-type outfit that Ladine was wearing. Plus, Jim Henderson was well known for having done Detective magazine covers, Ed, so he was used to taking photographs of bimbos in distress and handcuffs and gags and things like that. So it was certainly the proper photographer for the day, for the occasion. And what's interesting to me about that photograph is that it was ghosts were not in the mind of either the photographer or the model when this was set up, and it was strictly a fashion shoot, and yet coincidentally they happened to be somewhere at the right time and got lucky and got this interesting photograph.
What year did this happen in?
You caught me at a disadvantage here. I believe somewhere around 85, 86
not bad,
was when that was taken. Right, not that long ago.
Okay, then thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
As a matter of fact, at the corner of Irving Park and Clark Street, there are 3 cemeteries. There's Graceland on the north side. Now, on the I guess it would be the southeast corner, there is a cemetery, but it's not the Jewish cemetery. The Jewish cemetery is down the block a ways. I forget the name of the one right on the corner, but the entrance to Wonders, the Jewish cemetery, is, I don't know, maybe 50 yards south of the one on the opposite corner from Graceland.
There's at least 2 there, if not 3. If we had our Chicago Tribune map, we could check that out. I believe one is called Hebrew there too, isn't there? Isn't there 2 Jewish cemeteries in the third?
I thought there was just one, but it was in disrepair and overgrown, and a lot of money was raised a year or 2 ago in the Jewish community to restore this cemetery, to go in to pull the weeds and to fix things up, because it was in a state of chaos.
And of course, just the growth of trees over the years will disrupt stones and knock things around. And
I noticed this morning. I drive down that street all the time. I was noticing in the ones, not Graceland, but the one on the south side of Irving Park, and I don't know how old that cemetery is, but there are graves literally right up against the fence, right up against Irving Park, like 3 feet away from the edge of Irving Park Road. That cemetery must be about full, but I presume those people were buried a very long time ago. But it just seems so unceremonious to me to have somebody buried within exhaust fumes, within that close to traffic. I mean, their funerals and their burials must have been rather disturbing since they're so close to the street. But the cemeteries were there obviously long before the neighborhoods were.
Right, when those streets were a lot narrower and a lot less congestion and traffic.
Somebody on the phone who wants to help us out on the cemetery thing here. Hello?
Oh, yes, it is on the cemetery. I just want to correct something. Wonders Cemetery is not a Jewish cemetery. That belongs to First St. Paul Lutheran Church.
Oh, does it?
It was named after their first pastor, Pastor Wunder.
Well, it must be very old then, right?
Yes, it is. It is, and they still take care of it.
Well, then the cemetery that Richard and I are talking
is right past it.
That's the Hebrew cemetery.
Right. I just wanted to correct that.
All right. Well, Wonders is what? Is that the one on the corner then?
Right.
Okay. So then the Hebrew cemetery, the Jewish cemetery, is just south of Wonders.
Correct.
All right.
Okay.
You've been very kind.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye. So you can find out almost anything you need by listening to the radio. 22 before the hour of 4 o'clock. If you want to know where the fish are biting, You listen to the Great Outdoors this morning at 6 a.m. with Bill Cullerton right here on WGN in Chicago. And on St. Patrick's Day, the fish will be green, right? Of course, they're going to dye the river green today. You know that, 12 noon.
Have to use green bait to catch the fish.
Absolutely correct. At O'Hare right now, it's 40. These temperatures are slowly sliding south a bit. 40 O'Hare, 44 Midway, 44 downtown, southwest wind at 17. Feels kind of cold out there tonight. Mostly cloudy today, windy, high in the upper 40s. Friday, I believe, we got up to 60 degrees here. 59 or 60, but we'll be quite a bit cooler today. Back we go to the phone for Richard Crowe, my guest. Hello, Charles.
Yes, good morning, Ed.
Good morning to you.
Good morning, Mr. Crowe.
Good morning.
This has nothing directly to do, I don't suppose, with Irish mysteries and stories and so forth, but it's a question that I've had for several years. Many years ago, I heard a story, bits and pieces, about an entire train, passengers and all, that disappeared somewhere out west.
A vanishing train.
Do you remember hearing about that?
By west, you mean where now?
Western part of the country.
Uh-huh.
Well, I never heard about that.
No, it doesn't ring a bell. I did remember, I think we had a call some time back at about a engine that fell into a lake in Indiana. Do you remember that? It was never recovered?
No, I don't.
But not the entire train.
This was further west, like Montana or Colorado or somewhere out that way.
Well, it sounds like a Rod Serling story.
No, I can't help you on that. You don't have any more information on that?
No, I've been trying. I've heard it mentioned just briefly. It seemed like I was always catching the tail end of the story. I've heard it on radio, TV, and
well, that's a new one on me. Maybe we ought to call Amtrak and see if they've got one missing, huh?
I think it was a little before Amtrak's time.
I think you're probably right.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, this was like back in the old Wild West days.
Maybe what the problem here is, maybe they're just off schedule. Maybe they'll begin like tomorrow.
Maybe it's still trying to get there, huh?
Yeah, it could be. Well, we'll keep our ears open on that one.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Charles. We appreciate the call. Let's see. Joe is next. All right, Joe, wake up. Sound like you're awake.
I'd like to ask Richard about the yellow light at Maple Lake.
Okay.
It's supposed to be seen on the south shore there.
The ghost light at Maple Lake, right, it's on the far shore.
Do you know anything more about it?
Well, I've seen it a number of times, seen it 4 times altogether. Have you ever been out there looking for it?
No, I plan to, though.
Uh-huh. Just take 95th Street east of Archer and pull into the overlook, and when the police come, just tell them you're doing a scientific experiment, I guess. And on the far shore is where this light appears. Now, I've seen it as a red light 4 times, but years ago it was seen, I know for some cases it was seen as a yellow light, but in recent years it's been red, and there's no red light. It should be over there because you've got no tail lights of vehicles, no stop sign, nothing in that area that should be visible because the next east-west through street's a 1.5 miles away below the horizon, and there shouldn't be anything at all visible like that, but it's right there at the shoreline.
And I'd like to ask you about, there's supposed to be a ghost at Marquette Road in Ashland.
That's a very old story. That's a story that goes back to a gentleman I knew in my college days, Stan Banas, a geography major at DePaul University, who told me about seeing a greenish man walking down the street, and when he got close, not only was he looking green, but he was semi-transparent.
All right.
But I don't have anything recent on him, but that's from years back. Maybe somebody out there in the listening audience might have something current on him, though.
Okay, thanks.
All right.
Thank you.
Try and wake up there, young man. Let's see. Irene is waiting here. Good morning, Irene.
Well, hello, Eddie.
Hi.
And I want to speak to Mr. Crowe.
You've got it.
Okay. You know, I've enjoyed you every time I've heard you on radio, and I've been wanting to go on one of your tours for a long time. It seems when I decide to go, no one else does. Now, here's the point. I have a suggestion.
Mm-hmm.
How about having a pickup in the loop when you go on the tour? That way you'd get really more people, you know, because the loop connects with all the area. And you see, I don't have a car. And it would cost me $25 a round trip, I think, to get there and back.
Well, my public tour leaves from DePaul University campus on Fullerton.
That's west, isn't it?
Well, it's 2400 north.
Yeah,
just a little bit west.
I know where Fullerton is.
But it is accessible not only by CTA, but the L train stops there.
I don't ride the L train.
Okay. But I have to explain my logic here now, too.
Sure.
If I picked up downtown, it would be a great added expense for people who drove in because they'd have to pay for parking.
Oh, now that is the point.
And I pick up in an area that's safe, that's patrolled, that has public transportation, and also, I'm afraid, although you might think it's a little bit inconvenient, I've got people coming from Milwaukee, South Bend, St. Joe, Michigan, Peoria. I am drawing from a wider and wider area all the time. And even though the Lincoln Park area may seem a little bit out of the way for you, I'm afraid, when you look at the entire area I'm drawing from, it is fairly central.
Well, listen, I'm going to talk to someone.
But that's not okay. But the other point is, that's my public tour. And remember, when I do private tours, I pick up wherever people want. And give me a call, and I'll see about. I'll let you know when I've got somebody that's going to be picking up in the area.
I don't think I have your number here.
Okay. Well, we'll give it again here in a little bit.
Oh, good. Well, thank you.
But I'll try to take care of you one way or the other.
Listen, I'll be there. Don't worry.
Okay.
Irene with 2 N's.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for the call. The number 5, final go round here. If you want to get in and talk to Rich, final opportunity would be 591-7200 as the time to, or the time to call would be right now. And I can't keep in for the whole program because you, as you mentioned, you're giving a lecture today?
Well, I've got a lecture coming up, right? And
we'll talk about leprechauns, huh?
You got it.
Where, if you couldn't be in Chicago on St. Patrick's Day, where would be the second best place that you would want to be?
Actually, last year was the first St. Patrick's Day I can remember spending it out of Chicago, and I was out in Los Angeles because Comic Relief was on St. Patrick's weekend last year, if you remember, Ed.
Yeah,
and I wound up with our friends Bob Zamuda and Joe Triani, and we wound up. I was in an Irish bar in Los Angeles, and let me tell you, it's not the same. They're not enlightened out there in Los Angeles. They actually have the fire department come around and close down bars and say, "Okay, enough is enough. You're too crowded. Everybody out of here. You're closed," and shut down bars. Can you imagine going around Chicago trying to shut down bars today?
No, because most of them are owned by firemen, and I'm kidding, but
we won't mention our good friend John Kelly over there at Kelly's Bar. Huh?
Yeah, I think the license is in somebody else's name.
But it is certainly culture shock to go somewhere where they don't take St. Patrick's Day as seriously as we do here. No, Chicago's the place to be for St. Patrick's Day.
Somebody called up and wanted to know if you would tell what you know about that story about Warrenville, that monster you mentioned.
The Doo-Wah Demon, that's... it was from a tour that I did for Four Lakes Village out in Lisle that I first picked up on this story. And there was a quarry out there, and for the life of me, I don't have a map handy. I couldn't tell you exactly where. But there is a strange figure. It's an exceedingly tall individual who's seen in the quarry, and dressed in dark, dressed in old frock coat type thing. Mm-hmm. And people chase him, and then you'll go to a dead end, he's not there, a situation like that. So it's a pretty odd ghost story regarding the quarry. Funny thing about quarries is there's often weirdness and strange tales about quarries, so you never can tell what you're going to find somewhere. So if you're out around Warrenville and you know the quarry I'm talking about, if you've got any information, give us a quick call.
All right, here, let's see who's next. Jim, are you out there?
Yes, I am, Eddie.
Good morning. Welcome to WGN on St. Patrick's Day.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'd like to ask Mr. Crowe a question, if I could.
Okay.
You probably can't give an address if there is one, but where today is the most haunted house in Chicago?
Oh, that's a tough question because it's how do you specify house? Now, you're talking about a building? You want a private residence, or
your discretion?
Okay. Are you looking for something that's current, or are you looking for a long-standing tradition?
Current.
Well, I suppose if you're looking for something current with a lot of material behind it, I'd say Hull House, which is no longer a private residence, but which once was, and its associations with Jane Addams, and a whole slew of stories about that over the years. Everything from Jane Addams' writings and when she took over the place and how the place was supposedly haunted by a shrouded monk figure and fiery a fiery poltergeist-type activity, fires breaking up on themselves there at one time. And, of course, we've got the Rosemary's Baby connection, the Devil Baby of Taylor Street association with Hull House. And I have seen at Hull House visiting at night, because it is a stop on many of my night tours, get out and walk around, check out the ambiance, read the plaques, the historic markers there. And funny thing about that building is there's something odd going on there at night, because I've seen on occasion the wooden shutters, the decorative shutters inside the glass windows actually start to swing back and forth by themselves. And is Ken Harris around tonight, Ed?
No, I don't think he is.
He's got a great story about Hull House, too. Too bad we don't have him here. We can throw him on the air. But Ken, he's still a producer?
Yeah.
This title? Okay. Ken, who's a producer down here at the station, told me a while back a great story about working as a security guard on campus, because Hull House at Halstead and Polk is surrounded now by University of Illinois Chicago, the former, as we called it, Circle campus. And Ken talked about the time he was walking down the street on patrol, looks up to the top floor window, and sees this weird figure looking out at him. And once again, there's nobody there at that time. Remember, Hull House is strictly union. Nobody works overtime. Nobody's there late at night. And a lot of stories like that. So I would say that because it dates back now to the 1850s, we're talking about something that's 140-some years old, a location that has a tradition of being haunted going back over 100 years. Hull House gets one of my top votes on that.
Let me remind you of something that occurred years ago, but is still talked about. Remember when the Field Museum had the display of King Tut? Do you remember the story about funny noises going on in the Field Museum late at night, and a mummy supposedly fell over somewhere in the museum?
Yeah, the mummy at the Field Museum was not connected with the King Tut exhibit, however.
Story? Okay.
Right, but that's Harwa, who is now, in fact, they've got great picture postcards for sale of him in the shop there at the museum. If you want to send an interesting picture postcard around to friends, get Harwa the mummy. And Harwa is partially unwrapped, his head is unwrapped, and he was on display, is still on display at the Field Museum. And one night, a night watchman, and this was documented in the magazine put out by the Field Museum, which goes to members of the Field Museum. This night watchman hears a scream, and he runs to investigate in this wing, the Egyptology wing of the museum. And in the sealed glass case, Harwa is no longer on his pedestal. Harwa is a few feet over on his side. And he actually apparently jumped off the pedestal, moved from his location. So,
what a way to end the evening.
Well, I don't know how you want to explain that, if poltergeist activity caused him to move, but certainly you had a disembodied voice of something or other taking place there, because he's not in a position to scream, but that was heard, and that was the result of the investigation.
Well, Mr. Crowe, really enjoyed the evening. Eddie, you're a great show tonight.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you much.
Keep listening.
It. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Hello, Lori. How are you?
Fine. How are you, Eddie?
Good. What would you like to ask?
Two things. First, I just read recently that Pullman, I guess Richard Pullman, is that his name? Was his name? Was buried at in Graceland Cemetery.
George Pullman.
George. Yeah, and the weird grave, supposed to be a room-size grave lined with cement, and his casket was lined with cement for fear of vandals.
Right. He took great precautions because he feared that there would be desecration of his grave after his death.
Was there ever any vandals or anything after that?
The precautions that he took were such that you'd probably have to dynamite him out of there.
I just read that in a paper I get from Blue Cross Blue Shield, and I thought it was kind of weird. But another thing, you were mentioning going to cemeteries. I remember when I was a child, our family are all buried in St. Boniface on Clark and Lawrence, and a lot of them had been moved from Lincoln Park. And I remember going there on Memorial Day, which was on different holidays, and we'd all go. It would be like a family affair. I mean, several of us would go and spend the day. There were benches there and everything, So when you were talking about going and looking in cemeteries and having picnics, I mean, it was more or less the same sort of thing, because there was all always a lot of work, you know, I mean,
Right.
flowers to be planted and everything.
Yeah.
And in some of these older cemeteries, I don't know if you recall seeing these little benches, stone benches,
Yeah.
as markers on some of the graves.
Yeah.
To invite you to come and sit down at that person's site.
And the big angels and everything in that cemetery. That's really...
See, I've made arrangements in my will when they bury me, we're going to build a 7-Eleven right there. And you'll be able to come out and have a Slurpee while I'm there.
Okay, I just wondered about the Pullman grave.
Right. One more thing quickly, too, about that, Laurie, is that Pullman took all these precautions. And you know the other person, Ed, who had all kinds of things done at his grave to make sure he'd never be stolen?
John Dillinger, right?
Exactly. Oh, you can't fool you. You're a Chicago trivia buff. John Dillinger's family had everything taken care of like that.
As a matter of fact...
Where was he buried?
Indianapolis.
Oh.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, he is buried under metal and railroad ties and cement, and I mean, they filled up. You know, I've often wondered, I wonder if they did anything special to Al Capone's grave. Well, I know the headstone has been stolen 2 or 3 times. As a matter of fact, Al Capone now lies in an unmarked grave, I guess. But,
no, it's marked. It's out there at just east of the entrance, Roosevelt Road Street entrance, out at Mount Carmel Cemetery.
Really? I wonder if, I'm not trying to give anybody any ideas, of course, but, you know, crazy things have happened. Do you remember a few years ago?
Don't tell Geraldo or he'll be over there.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Do you remember when a couple of guys dug up the bones of Elizabeth Taylor's former husband?
Michael Todd.
Michael Todd. And they'd heard there was some kind of jewelry in the coffin, I think. And they were going to ransom his bones off. They got caught. But they disinterred Michael Todd, which was a horrible thing to do.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. We ought to mention again here, we will in a moment, Richard's address. Let me get a break in real quick, and we'll give you the man's post office box.
Cub fans, to heck with the owners, to heck with the players, this is a tribute to you, the greatest fans in the world. The new 1990 This Is Next Year Cub Fan Calendar. It's much more than a calendar. It's a story about what it takes to be a Cub fan and what Cub fans go through in the course of a year. It's for Cub fans, about Cub fans, and for those who must put up with Cub fans. It's beautifully photographed and wonderfully funny. It starts in April and ends in March, and it has 2 months of October. There are a lot of laughs and happy memories on every page. If you are a Cub fan, if you bleed Cub blue, you are really going to love this calendar. To order, send a check or money order for $12, which includes postage, handling, and tax to Core Communications. That's CORE Communications, P.O. Box 210, Vernon Hills, Illinois, 60061. The 1990 This Is Next Year Cub Fans Calendar is published by real diehard Cub fans, not affiliated with the Chicago Cubs or Major League Baseball.
And before we say goodnight to Richard Crowe, his address, P.O. Box 29054, Chicago 60629. Your final caller awaits you. Ray?
Yeah.
Hi, Ray. How are you?
Hi, real good.
What would you like to know?
I'd just like to know if you ever had an opportunity to go to the cemetery at O'Hare Airport.
I've never been in there. I know it exists, and I've not had a chance to visit that yet. Have you been back there?
Have you heard anything about it?
Ghostly-wise?
Yeah.
No.
Does it have a name, or is it called the O'Hare Cemetery? I don't even know if it has a separate name.
Is it called St. Patrick's?
I'm really not sure.
I think it is.
What we ought to mention is that when the property for O'Hare Field was developed, there was, before it was an airport, a cemetery out there. And again, because cemeteries are hallowed ground, apparently the developers of the airport chose just to leave the cemetery. I guess it's literally between runways out there, isn't it?
Yeah, it's, we just built the building right next to it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Well, what company are you with?
Federal Express.
So the cemetery is how close to you?
Within walking distance.
How big is it?
It's not very big. I plan on trying to take a walk out there in the summer.
I wonder, is it fenced or gated or what?
I'm pretty sure it's fenced in, yeah.
I wonder how many people who are landing and taking off at O'Hare realize that they actually are landing on hallowed ground, so to speak. I bet that would be eerie for some people to know that part of O'Hare is a cemetery.
Yeah. Well, just wondering now. Thanks a lot.
If you hear anything, let us know.
Is that on the DuPage side or the Cook County side?
I believe it's DuPage, right off Irving Park Road.
Yeah. All right. Well, let me know what you hear.
Okay, fine.
All right.
Thanks, Tom.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. So you're off to, let's see, New Orleans here before long. They're off to Salem, Mass.
New Orleans in April, Salem in June. I'll call you from somewhere haunted down in those places.
I'd like that very much if you would. every time we get together, it's always an interesting visit. You have a number of interesting stories to tell, and I would say to you that we're talking about a lot of things that are sometimes unconfirmed. It's not that in this kind of program we're trying to spread rumors or false tales or anything, but every community that's been around a while has its own folklore, its own history. Some of it is very interesting. Some of it has been embellished over the years. Some of it has been rearranged. But in order to get into the future, we also need to know where we've been. And that's one of the things that Richard does. He studies these things and tries to point them out. I will see you soon, I hope.
Okay, Ed.
It's always,
maybe at the Leprechaun lecture next week. Drop on by.
I'd like to do that at the Irish Castle in Beverly Hills. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Same to you and all the listeners out there.
And thank you, Rich, very much. Richard Crowe has been my guest tonight. This program isn't over. We've got a big hour left. I've got a couple of surprises up my sleeve, so hang around.